well, haven't we had a accumulation of wealth in the last several decades? Some people have gotten wealthier. The average person hasn't. The middle class is smaller, is especially smaller in these past 5 years. So you print money, and even if they get a GDP to go up, it's represented by the government spending more money on cruise missiles or something. And that doesn't help you. It doesn't help your income. It doesn't help keep prices down. It doesn't help you one bit. And it is so destructive, because when the trouble comes and the Fed say, we are all wise, we know what interest rates should be, we know what the cost of money should be, and therefore we're going to make it free. And guess who qualifies? The big banks. And they get free money and they loan it back to the governments and they buy the bonds, finance the political system, and they make a lot of money. But what happens to the average person who decides they need to be frugal? Times are tough. Spend less, save more, be prepared, take care of ourselves, act responsibly. Guess what? Instead of getting a market rate of interest, which very well could be 5, 6, 7, 8%, they get 1% or nothing. So it is so unfair, and once again, it is biased against the people, protects the big banks, the big corporations, and the politicians. Another area that we have created a lot of problems for ourselves, and we're in the midst of a transition, and that is in foreign affairs. We're spread too far around the world. We're in 140 countries. We have 900 bases. They're preparing right now to go into Syria, and it probably won't be too long that we may well be in Iran. We don't need another war. We need less wars, and we need to quit. The strongest things that we have to deal with, of course, is the foreign policy as a consequence of the tremendous fear about being attacked by a terrorist.
Boogeyman.
The terrorism is a serious subject to deal with, and if you understand the blowback mechanism, of course, we think we can do a whole lot to reduce the threat of terrorism. But right now, the threat of any of us being killed by terrorists is about 1 in 25 million. The odds of getting killed by a car is 1 in 19,000. Lightning, 1 in about 5 million. But guess what? If you're in the military and you have to go over and get involved in a shooting battle to save the world for democracy, make the world safe for democracy, and bring peace and tranquility to these countries, guess what? The estimates are, and there's no precise number, but it's somewhere between 2 and 20 per 100 people, like 2% to 20% that you will be killed by friendly fire. What a tragedy. And they think that we have to have a drone warfare, constant, every country. Anybody who suggests they just likes it, who tries to have drone missiles. And guess what? That does not win friends. It does not help us in any way whatsoever. It has been said that they were very pleased that we were over there. It was much easier killing us over there than needing to come over here where the Second Amendment is still alive and well. Policy like this and emphasizing blowback, somebody rather nationally said the other day on the internet, and they said, oh yeah, if those Paul peoples had been in charge, Osama bin Laden would still be alive. You know what I think the answer is? So would the 3,000 people from 9/11 be alive. fact severely injured, they would not be suffering those consequences, and we wouldn't have hundreds of thousands suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome as well as brain injuries. So I would say if you take that and add in $4 trillion, our side wins that argument. If we had our way and we removed these dangers, of course the president would not be able to assassinate anybody, especially never an American citizen. And of course, if we have our way, we would repeal the provision in the National Defense Authorization Act. If they've gone all the way back to 1215 to mess around with the progress of liberty and repeal habeas corpus by saying that you don't have any right of due process and the military can arrest us and put in private prisons and never get a trial. There's something very un-American about that, let me tell you. When that bill was being debated in the Senate, there was a provision in there so that actually it looked like it was going to get passed. The provision said that if we as American citizens were arrested and we were tried and found innocent in a jury trial, they still claimed that they could put us away forever and held indefinitely in detention. But it didn't get that bad. It's still bad, but there was a senator, I can't think of his name, I think he was from Kentucky, and he was able to stop that. Once it got out on the table, they said, oh, we didn't know that was in there. Of course, that's always possible because they don't have the biggest idea what they're voting on most of the time. That is a problem, when there's a Read the Bills Act over there, and of course I think that's a proper thing to do, you ought to read the bill. But, I have to admit, I haven't read all those bills. I mean, if they're 1,000 pages long, my staff has good instructions. They say they have an easy job. They say all they have to do is show me if it's unconstitutional. So a lot of times they only have to read the first page. If there was ever a time if I wasn't well informed or I came quickly and thought, well, maybe haven't thought this through completely, let me tell you, it's always been safe to vote no. I think the important thing that we know in this room, and the growing number of Americans are realizing, that the worst thing we can do is remain silent. How many times I've been to the campuses, I brought the subject up about military arrests and the problems that we're facing, assassination and torture and all these things. And I said, but how many times have you read it or heard about it on the evening news? I mean, it's almost like there's a silence out there. But early on in the campaign, I would bring up, I'd just sort of say, well, let me tell you a little bit about NDAA, and I would think I had to fully explain it. But as soon as I said NDAA, the people in the audience were outraged about it, which means we're not silent, we know about it, but we have to get around the system, which will not report on it, because they're part of the problem. They're part of the